G episode 115. My name is Dave Hunt, and I'm joined by Michael Swick.
How's it going, Dave? How's it going?
Good.
Nothing crazy's happened in the last week. Just fallout from last week in general.
Does it feel like acquisition? Does it feel like Microsoft bought Activision 7 days ago?
No, because nothing's changed yet.
Yeah.
It's gonna.
No, but I meant, did we feel like that? Like, it feels like that news was like longer, like more than 7 days.
It does feel like that was like a lifetime ago. Especially, I've been listening to a lot of hot takes on this, and then revising my hot takes and just enjoying the hell out of all the discourse that's coming from this.
So just people's opinions on what they think will or won't happen, and in the long run, like, we really don't know. And like, you'll get into some of the news stories, but it's just a ton of PR talk right now. A ton.
Yeah, because everyone's hands are tied right now until probably the next 6 months to 18 months, I believe.
All right, so we are Digital Days Gaming. We are a podcast that posts every Thursday on podcast services. If you could leave us a review, especially on Spotify and iTunes, those help tremendously. As you may or may not have seen over the last week, part of the 2022 goal is to get more eyes on DDG. And the best way that we do that is with you guys, as well as some of the short form content that we've started messing around with a little bit. Some TikToks and some YouTube shorts. So if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please consider subscribing so you can check those shorts. And then if you use TikTok, which I know not everybody does, but the returns that I've already seen on views on TikTok, we can't ignore the platform anymore. So just the fresh set of eyes that are on there, and hopefully those eyes that see it turn into listeners, and then listeners turn into community members. Like, that's kind of always the goal. So the way that, again, you guys as listeners already can help us is by reviewing, especially on iTunes, because it helps on iTunes algorithm. And as well as on Spotify, because Spotify now has a review system. I think you can actually review individual episodes.
Ooh, that's not good for me.
I don't think that you can review the whole show, but I don't know. I don't really mess with Spotify as a platform. So we will try to make sure we add all the links in the show notes to everything. I don't want our show notes to be like ridiculously crazy for anybody, but if any at all, just let us know about some of that short form content, what you think. It's been kind of cool. Like, Angela is obviously like the producer of the podcast, and she's learning and kind of messing with the platform as she does this. And some things do really, really well on YouTube, and then some things do really, really well on TikTok, and then both of them don't. So it's kind of cool. But as well as like a PayPal donation links down there. The Teesprings website's there for t-shirts and hoodies, and we need to look at that and see if there's maybe update some colors and then maybe add some other things to it. So Josh just chimed in. You can review the entire show on Spotify at the top left corner when you click on the DDG page. So thank you, Josh. Obviously, he uses Spotify. He's the one a couple weeks ago that actually sent it to me and he said, "Hey, just so you know, this is a thing." And I was like, "Oh, cool." So
you can do that now. Yeah.
Yeah. So go ahead, like, while you're listening, just click that top corner, but not if you're driving. So we're gonna jump into some news, and this first one is one I know that Michael's like super interested in. So.
Yeah. All right. So the Yakuza creator we talked about a little bit, Toshihiro Nagoshi, he left Sega late last year. I want to say like November, December, and rumors were going around that he was going to make a new studio at NetEase. That is actually the fact. He is moving over to create his own studio, and it is called Nagoshi Studios. So, creative name there, but still, it's fine. He is also taking along 8 other veterans of the Yakuza series over to this new studio, and it sounds like they are going to be making what they call high-end console gaming, and they are going to stick with what they know best and make Japanese-focused games that are either about Japan or take place in Japan, because that is what they've always been doing, and they're a Japanese studio, so they're sticking to it. So it sounds like they're not going to do anything crazy that we're not going to expect from them. We're just going to get to see what they do outside of the Yakuza franchise. So pretty basic story. NetEase does own the studio 100%, so we'll see how that works. I mean, they did pretty well under Sega, so NetEase seemed to be one of those companies that kind of just lets developers do what they want, at least for now. I'm still waiting for that to change with like NetEase and Tencent. But as of right now,
Hmm.
they just fund these developers and let the developers make whatever they want. So just good to know what they're doing. And they didn't mention NFT in any of their stuff, so I'm fine with how this is going.
Awesome. Yeah. It was a kind of a one of those, like, I saw the tweet or the headline from somebody else, and I was like, huh. I think that's that guy that Michael was talking about, and I read into it.
Yep.
I'm like, yep, for sure. So hopefully he gets to the reason that he left. I think that you were hinted at before was just more or less he wasn't liking the parameters or the barricades that he was been given.
I think it's just he did the thing where I think he's been with Sega for like 18 years, so it wasn't necessarily like there was some stuff blocking him. It's just same company for 18 years, wanted to do something new, and Sega seems to be very much like set on. You make the Yakuza games, you can do other things inside that franchise or that universe, but this is what you're doing. This allows him to step out of that box just a little bit.
Yeah, awesome. So I mean, good for him. It'll probably be a little bit before we see his first game, or newer game, I guess. Not maybe first game, but it's cool. Like to hopefully see. You know, I've heard a lot about NetEase just because they obviously invested in Bungie's new IP that we still don't know anything about.
A long time ago.
Yeah, but I really haven't heard much else from NetEase at all. So not good or bad either way. So, but hopefully that they give him the freedom that he needs to make the game that he wants. Like, and I think it'd be really cool to see him do something like he wants. Like maybe not. I'm not saying that Capcom was restricted, but Sega. I'm sorry. Yeah, Sega was restrictive, but it would definitely be interesting to see. You know, like obviously for him, like multi-platform stuff would probably be a big deal because they didn't really want to mess with PC at all.
No, they definitely didn't. Even though they saw success on PC, they wanted to move PC, but they locked themselves in with Judgment, and it's like a whole sort of mess there with how Sega was handling all that stuff. But that's not the news everyone wants to talk about. So we have follow-up for...
You have 4 separate stories on here, and they all pertain to the same thing.
And the crazy part is...
There's more.
There's like actually 5 or 6 that are in here that I just combined under. So obviously last week, Microsoft bought Activision Blizzard for almost $70 billion. We covered it the day the news dropped. So there wasn't the PR cycle that followed covered last week's show. So forgive us if some of the stuff you guys have already heard. It's just this is like a never-ending story until this deal closes.
Make the game that he wants.
Phil Spencer, within the same day or probably a day or two after, he did some interviews. The interview that I want to focus on now was with Washington Post. It was a 10-minute interview, so they couldn't cover a lot of ground, but he talked about the workplace issues at Activision Blizzard Keen. I kept seeing people refer to them as ABK, and I was just like, oh, that makes sense. Keen is a very important part, so ABK. When they asked about the workplace issues, his quote was, "I believe the leaders there believe in the opportunity they have in their plan." He noted his confidence that these issues will be resolved in addressing potential bringing up of unionized workers. He said the company will aim to empower its employees and do their best work. So didn't say he's going to endorse any unionization, but then shortly after all this news broke out, Raven QA has unionized. 34 employees have formed a union. They were on strike last week. They lifted their strike under the clause that Ravensoft or Activision Blizzard has to recognize their union, or else they either will go back on strike or they will do the usual union thing where you have to like hold a vote and then go through the arbitration process with the employer. So let's just talk a little bit about this. Microsoft isn't the most friendly company when it comes to unions. I don't think any branch of Microsoft is unionized, and they just took on Activision, which has had a bunch of potential union-related stories come up, and now an actual union when it comes to Ravensoft. Is this Microsoft's problem, or do you think this is like a secret, like Kotick, you have however long it takes for this deal to close to fix this issue?
I think this could be something potentially that could definitely hold this sale up. because I think that is a concern. I don't know enough about mergers or acquisitions, purchases to say if like, do they have to honor it? Because technically you're coming, and how they're classified as, like, is Raven classified as an Activision Blizzard property, like studio? Are they classified as an independent studio under the corporation of Activision Blizzard? Like, I'm sure that there's a bunch of legal terms to that. And then, like, is this just the QA testers, or is this the whole studio? There's a lot of questions that are left to be unanswered. And most of the time, I'm not anti-union or pro-union at all. I think that they serve their place as needed. I also do feel personally that they aren't necessarily needed if your employer or upper management takes care of you properly. They can definitely, your employers and upper management and bosses, owners, whatever you want to call them, if they listen to their people, they can react much faster than any form of unionization at all. So, like, that's like where my personal stance on that is. And if they and apparently at Raven, they're obviously, the upper management's just not listening or not caring.
Activision in general.
Yeah.
Like, the video game industry kind of needs unionization because it's been so bad.
Mm-hmm. I also think that people need to understand kind of what they're signing up for. Like, we've talked about this before with contracted work or working on a game or being brought in to do something specific, and then that specific thing doesn't need to be done anymore. Like, yes, it does. Like, is there a possibility that the next game could have that same need? Yeah, but do they maybe know what that next game is? I don't know. That part is, sucks. That if you're subcontracted out, then you should expect it, and you can't be. We even as consumers can't be annoyed if the next Star Wars game comes out from anybody and the studio ramped up to release the game, and then the game releases and they're like, oh, they laid off 100 people. Well, yeah, the game's out. Like, they did what they needed to do. Now, was that presented to those people correctly of, hey, here's a 1-year contract that expires when the game launches? Like, yeah. I don't know. So
and it sounds like that stuff kind of gets up in the air, which is what causes a lot of these reactions and issues.
Yeah, because I do know the couple of the relationships I have from people in the gaming industry that mostly involves PR is that they are brought in. Usually they know what their assignment's going to be when they're brought in, and then they also are under contracts for short-term contracts, 2-year contracts or 3-year contracts, that other companies are also aware of said person's contract. I don't know like where they find this stuff out at, but I've had friends that had changed in the video game industry from a PR standpoint that knew 4 months ahead of time where their next job was going to be, because they already knew their contract was up and they were being offered a new contract. So by either the same company or a different PR company. So do I think it's handled that way with a art design lead or a QA tester? Oh, not at Activision Blizzard.
No, yeah. And that's the thing, is where Activision Blizzard, definitely the employees needed to do something, and unionization seemed like it is the best option for how things are going. I don't know if Microsoft can get away of like, don't do it because things are better here. You don't hear about our employees wanting to unionize. Right. That might not work out for them, especially knowing that this deal can take 18 months. You can't tell the employees now, like, oh yeah, you just got to deal with Kotick for 18 months of your life, like especially a year and a half.
There's always the possibility, whether it's 1% or 80%, that this deal doesn't go through. It's always there. And then if that doesn't go through, and they gave up the unionship because they thought the Microsoft acquisition would go through, and then it doesn't go through, to get it going again would be a huge challenge.
Yeah. This is going to be tricky for Microsoft to handle, which is why I think Phil Spencer was saying, like, I think they'll be able to handle the situation. And he was very clear not to be pro or anti-union in his statement, because he knows that'll open up a whole can of worms that could totally see him losing his spot at Microsoft if he goes too hard one way or the other. Just because this has never happened. Like, Raven is the first like large union to happen, and we're only talking about like 34 employees, I believe, that have formed this in the QA department. Raven reacted by a day or two later, announcing that they were going to integrate those 34 people into other branches of the studio, almost to sound like they're breaking them apart. So that could be a way that they're trying to, like, quote unquote, handle it. So we'll see how this goes.
Well, that's the interesting part. Not to cut you off, I'm sorry, but like, is this the like? I think this is mostly the QA testers, right?
Yeah, it's 34 QA testers, I believe, is the number.
Yeah. So like like how does that And that's the part that's interesting to me. Like, okay, like I work retail, you work retail. Like I've heard, not with any company that I've ever worked for, but I've heard of individual stores making their own unions. A huge chain locally near us is a union-based grocery store. And you hear pros and cons both ways, but it's also interesting to me to hear a department that is unionizing, and maybe not the other departments. Like, how are they classified at Raven? And then now, to your point, when they sit there and say, okay, you 6 go over here, you 6 go over here, you 6 go over here, what happens to that union thing of like
that? But that's why an Activision company would do that move, because it's just like, let's separate them. And because a big part of the reason at Raven is QA has always been kind of, or Activision in general, QA is always like sanctioned off. They're not allowed to participate in any of the other events that happen in the building. They're not really considered part of the team. They're their own team. So now integrating them should shuffle that up. But
that could backfire on them. They could get more people into the union, like saying, hey, like, like it could go both ways. Like, maybe their integration into the other departments and being involved in other, I don't even know if this is the right word, but other benefits of working for Raven, they might chill out on their thing, saying, hey, like, okay, like, this isn't too bad, and we really just wanted to be treated like a regular employee. Like, or, hey, like, my
benefits are different than yours, and we're on the same team,
Yep.
and it changes. So this could get like messier for this, and we'll see how that works out. I still think there's an agreement between Spencer and Kotick of like, this needs to be figured out before the deal is closed, because they say it can take anywhere from 6 months to 18 months for this deal to close, but I have a feeling the high-level people know exactly when this deal will close. Like, they branch all that off of like, okay, best case scenario closes this exact date, worst case scenario it closes this exact date, and then they just kind of structure the goals that they want to take from there.
Right. Agreed.
But let's get back to like the more video gamey aspect of that, because union talk is a complicated thing. Phil Spencer talked about how he would consider actually using studios like Toys for Bob, and I believe Vicarious Visions was mentioned, or one of the other studios, maybe Beanox, and talking about how they're hoping that they'll be able to work with them, and as the deal closes, get them the resources to work on franchise that Phil Spencer loves, and also that the teams would really want to get into. So he specifically pointed out, like, they have King's Quest, Guitar Hero, Hexen, and all the other IPs that are in the vault. So not just focusing on Call of Duty. So he wants to look at those studios that have been turned into support studios, into breaking them off that support and making them their own studio again for the most part. Like, Toys for Bob has stayed its own studio, but they have only been support since they finished Crash 4. So this is them just looking, or this is Phil Spencer just looking at all the other quality studios that Activision has kind of forgotten about, and now potentially pairing them with older Activision IPs that have gone dormant, or maybe even Microsoft IPs, because they can spread around those IPs, which we haven't seen them do just yet with any of their other acquisitions.
They're gonna have
but
to.
It's bound to happen.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see like something like a Skylanders game, maybe not with the toys for games thing, but just a Skylanders game, like
a Spyro.
Catering to this type of to a little bit of a younger audience. Like, again, I have a 6-year-old, and finding games that he can play and that he can play by himself, like that I don't have to read to him or explain a mechanic to him or teach him how to do something, that the game can hold, not necessarily hold his hand, but the game is of age appropriate for him to play and to overcome it. He's been playing Ben 10 on Game Pass, and he beat it. Like, I didn't play it at all. There's very few times that I helped him, and I like that game had some reading, but it actually had some vocal lines in it too, which was super helpful. For a 6-year-old that's still learning to read. So like, I think that gap of anywhere from a 5-year-old to a 9-year-old, obviously 9-year-olds can read, but you don't want, like, a 9-year-old's not going to find interest playing an RPG that's only or a Zelda style game that it requires a ton of reading. There's got to be a back and forth, and they do own some interesting properties, and they've got some really good talent.
Yeah, they've had proven talent that have just been shuffled into, and we'll talk about this a little bit in the Bobby Kotick interview, but they have a lot of stuff that they might have just hit barriers, though. I think a lot of those barriers were made by current Activision management, but they have a lot of stuff. And like Guitar Hero, I think, can exist without a plastic peripheral because of the name. There's a way to make another Guitar Hero game. There is a way to leverage Skylanders again. So there are many things that if Microsoft wants to pursue them, they definitely can. And they also have other studios that can work on these IPs. And
but I also think it's okay for a plastic guitar peripheral to exist again.
Especially if it's just a plastic. I think the downfall of Guitar Hero is they tried to compete with Rock Band and tried to do the whole band setup, and it just didn't work. So if they want to release just a guitar peripheral, they probably could, and there is an audience for that. And then if you combine that with Game Pass, like they could probably think of something interesting to do, kind of what Guitar Hero was trying to do with Guitar Hero Live, where it's just like, you don't own any of these songs; they're just streaming on a playlist.
And I think people would be more acceptable of that if it's entwined into their Game Pass subscription.
Yeah, because you might see it and be like, "Oh shit, a guitar is like $60. Okay, I'm more likely to pick up that $60 guitar because it's just included with my subscription service."
And the part that we really didn't talk about, I don't know if I said this or not, but the more the acquisitions that Microsoft has been making over these studios, like going all the way back to when they bought like Obsidian and
Ninja Theory
before they bought Bethesda, and then obviously now before they've their Activision merger, purchase, whatever you want to call it, that the thing that people used to point at, everybody rightfully so, similar to all these other subscription services with Game Pass, is like, well, is it on there for 6 months? Is it on there for 3 months? Is it on there for a year? Is it on there for 2 years? Like we don't know. We get like the 30-day or 14-day notice that it's leaving, but the standard has been set of Microsoft Studio games are being on there. So now it would be one of those things, to your example with Guitar Hero, if they know it's not going away, they might be more inclined, like you said, to buying a $60 peripheral because, like, okay, well, I know that I'll get access to this game for as long as Game Pass is a thing.
Yeah. And they can do some weird stuff with backwards compatibility in terms of getting those old games working. They probably can't sell those games, kind of like how they can't sell 50 Cent Blood in the Sand,
but they
still made it backwards compatible. Yeah, or you make them back. Yeah, you make them backwards compatible, and the people can use their old discs potentially, and that would bring so many people joy just from playing their old games. Let's move on to Bobby Kotick's interview. So Bobby Kotick, he did a really fluffy piece, but I saw a lot of people giving shit to the interviewer for not hitting Bobby Kotick with the hard questions. But me and you've talked about this before. You sometimes can't ask the hard questions,
or you ask them and the handler's like, turn it off.
Yeah. When you have a limited amount of time with someone, you get whatever you can get answered. Like, you can't grill them too much unless it's on like live national television, right, and you have that as security. If you're on a Zoom call and they're like, you have 10 minutes, you're going to ask the questions you can get answers to. You might brush against some tough questions, but if they don't want to answer it, you just move on.
And they control the call, by the way. Like, they're calling you, they can mute you. Like, there's that guy, like, I've been on digital calls, or, like Discord calls even, and like with other PR companies, and there's an extra person in the room. You never hear from him or her. Unless there.
You're going long, yeah. So, I thought this was interesting. So they asked him when the deal started to form and why it happened. And basically what Bobby Kotick said is, when Phil called, it happened to be at a time where we were getting ready to start our long-range planning process and realizing that things were going to be issues and challenges. We had the discussion. Phil and I know each other well, and we have a great relationship, and the company has a great relationship. But when you start to think about the skills we need and the resources we need, and what they have, it makes a lot of sense. So it sounds like, obviously, this deal didn't just take place over the last month or two when Phil Spencer said he was going to reevaluate his relationship, but they must have been kicking the tires for a couple months, and then everything happened. But it sounds like Bobby Kotick hit the realization, oh shit, we kind of put all of our money into a couple resources and things are log jammed. When you look at Blizzard, Overwatch 2, stuck. Diablo 4, stuck. Call of Duty, actually, finally, even though it's the number 1, number 2 game always,
saw a decline.
Saw a decline, and then they had turned all their studios into support studios and basically killed off all of their franchises. So it sounds like Bobby Kotick hit the point where he was in the long-term planning and was like, shit. And luckily, Phil Spencer was happened around that time to be looking to acquire things. So it almost sounds like they passed off like future problems to Microsoft because Microsoft just needed, that vault. They needed those franchises to bolster their services. So I don't know if you think I'm reading too much into it, but I
just think it's fascinating that he picks up a call from Phil Spencer. Like, I would love to hear that conversation. Like, hey, like, what would the number be? Like, like what, like, like just to, like, for Spencer to have the balls to be like, hey, I want to buy your company.
Yeah. And that happened to be around a time where, like, all these decisions that these big companies make are years in planning. So the idea that, like, Bobby Kotick was looking of like, okay, this is what we're doing to Call of Duty. This is the only thing that is a guarantee for them in terms of like they will make one every single year. And then you're like, what else do we do? Because that number is declining.
Yeah, so we released this in November. What does the other 11 months of the year look like? Well, they all look like Call of Duty. Like, what's so-and-so doing? Weapon skins. Oh, what's so-and-so doing? Maps. What's so-and-so doing? Matchmaking algorithm. Who's not working on Call of Duty? Nobody.
Yeah, it's like, who's not working on it? Blizzard. Okay, how's Overwatch 2 going? All the leadership left. Fuck. Okay, how's Diablo going? All the leadership left. Yeah. Like, Activision, I feel like if this deal didn't happen, maybe not next year, but maybe 5-10 years down the road, Activision's value could have been drastically different. In terms of what like their value,
and they pay a lot of money for somebody to do long-term prognosis too, and maybe he saw it, and like I said, he goes to the board and says, if we don't do this, this is what happens.
Yeah, and not to say that this is like Microsoft bought something that was that could die on their hands. Microsoft's looking at this from different interests. Blizzard's looking at this. Activision Blizzard's looking at this of like, this is our only lifeline, and Microsoft's like, we can throw that in here.
Yeah. Well, it's like, to your point, like you said earlier, it's twofold though. It's like, okay, they acquire the intellectual properties that obviously appeal to Spencer and his team, and then they also acquire talent that we have seen do things other than Call of Duty. So now he can go into a meeting and go, hey, you work for Microsoft Studios now. Like, how do you feel about working on Gears? Like, like a, or, a turn-based strategy game or anything, like in terms of like he can actually go to them and say, put all these names on a board and say, hey, like, this is what we have access to. What intrigues you? Like, I think we're going to see potentially in, 2024, 25, 26, we'll never hear about it, but I guarantee you there's going to be a ton of 3 people from this studio now work for this studio, 4 people from this studio work for this studio. Like, or they're working on this project.
I was thinking of possibilities of just like, okay, Rare don't want to do a new Banjo-Kazooie. Toys for Bob did really good with Spyro and Crash. Give them Banjo-Kazooie. 343 have never been able to figure out Halo. But what if Infinity Ward wants to take a shot at Halo? Right. And then what if 343, who seem to be good at multiplayer, take a shot at the next Warzone? Like, there's so many different things that they can do that will then satisfy the...
Or they just start helping. Like, so then all of a sudden Infinity Ward is helping 343, similar to how, people help Naughty Dog, or Naughty Dog help people, or, like, not the exact same thing, but Guerrilla essentially gave their engine tech to Kojima.
Yeah. Or when Shadow of the Colossus was struggling.
Yeah.
Oh, no, The Last Guardian was struggling, and then it was found out that, like, every Sony studio basically touched that to the finish line. The workflow could be so much greater on Microsoft, along with just what they can do with the IPs in terms of shuffling stuff around. So it sounds like they're pretty on board. Bobby Kotick in the interview also mentioned, like, Guitar Hero just couldn't compete because of the shortages nowadays, but thinks Microsoft's got enough money that they can push that along to where Activision wouldn't be able to make plastic instruments anymore, but Microsoft could. Skylanders was funny because he just talked about how other people in the market just kept putting crap out there and kind of diluted the whole market for Toys for Life. But I would say Bobby Kotick helped ruin that by making that a yearly thing when it shouldn't have been. and then diluted the market, and
Well,
then talked about like
I think the world, the consumers are more ready for a Skylanders games as a service almost. Like, okay, here's the here's the base game, here's your puck that you need if you do the toy thing, and now you continue just to buy toys. Like, you don't need to continue to buy, like Lego Dimensions was doing for a little bit, where like essentially the next game or next portal or next door came with the character, not another game, the character.
Yeah, it was physical expansion packs.
Yeah.
And that's something that Activision probably couldn't take the gamble on, of like, let's make a games as a service thing, and that would require the risk of being like, all right, the next 5 years, this is what we're dedicated to, but we're not going to get $60 a year from each player. It's something Microsoft could potentially play around with. And then he talked about like Candy Crush being a disappointment in terms of Candy Crush is big, but he feels like it has failed in terms of being a social game, which he hopes Microsoft can take part into it. Again, he made it seem like he had these grand ideas. I have a hard time believing he had like grand ideas for these franchises, but it seems like he's at least able to step back a little bit and being like, yeah, we could have done more.
Yeah, I painted myself in a corner.
Yeah, and it's now it's going to be up to like Phil Spencer and the Microsoft Gaming to figure out what to do, but they get to play a different game in terms of they're just bolstering one service as opposed to just trying to stay alive. Because Microsoft has put out their numbers now. Xbox only accounts for 11% of Microsoft's business. So like, it doesn't, they're not trying to stay alive, Microsoft Gaming. They're only 1/10 of their whole business or for Microsoft. So different game. Phil Spencer should be able to have a lot more tools to play with and a lot more money to mess around with. All right. So, talked about this. Talked about Raven QA. Let's talk about PlayStation. PlayStation didn't respond last week, or they did respond last week, specifically to Call of Duty's exclusivity potentially. So Sony responded to the Wall Street Journal's request for comment, saying, "We expect that Microsoft will abide by contractual agreements and continue to ensure Activision games are multi-platform." Xbox then tweeted out that they will honor these agreements, and then Bloomberg today reported that the 2022 Call of Duty will be multi-platform, the 2023 Call of Duty will be multi-platform, Warzone 2, which they expect in 2023, will also be multi-platform, but after that, it's a mystery, which makes me think contractual obligations kind of end around there, and we're probably in that negotiation window for when they re-up a deal or not. I wanted to add this to it. Back in 2015, PlayStation, that was when they started to have exclusive content or timed exclusive content for Call of Duty in 2015. And in my small brain, I assume it's a 5 or 10-year deal. And that's why Bloomberg, when they report like, yeah, after 2023, we don't really know what's going to happen, makes me think that it could be like a 10-year deal, might be expiring. But like sports contracts, you write in like a year where you can negotiate, or 2 years to like re-up.
Well, so we just had the exclusive content for one of the games, like a mode that was exclusive for Call of Duty on PlayStation for like an entire year.
Yeah, and the betas have been exclusive to PlayStation, so the deal's constantly been changing. But what do you think about this? We talked about this last week a little bit, but knowing that Sony's like, they have a contract, they signed it, and Microsoft being like, of course we'll honor those deals.
I mean, we just saw Deathloop, like like in Deathloop, and then Ghostwire Tokyo is coming allegedly still. So those, like, there's really, because that's lawyer suicide to go against these contracts that are signed, and publishing contracts that are signed and dealed. I agree with you. This time frame on this deal is probably expiring, which is another reason that we're probably hearing about now about the purchase of, like, okay, like, this is the window. Like, there obviously wasn't another deal, and to your point, if they know the 5-month window when this deal is going to close, I'm sure it's really close to any existing major exclusivity contracts or whatever contracts are with Sony or not. The 2015 contract was very close to the launch of PS4.
It was that 2015, like a year after,
around that. So. So that's when they also kind of became the home. PlayStation became the home for the Call of Duty tournaments and events as the main platform. So yeah, like, this doesn't surprise me at all. Phil Spencer is the king of lip service, and he just went through this Bethesda thing so he knows exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
What to say, what not to say, how to say it, how not to say it. And to my point before, you don't, like, everybody's like, well, you can't alienate a third of your player base. Like, I mean, you can if you're gonna offer it on my Android TV.
Yeah.
You know, like, they don't, like we've said 100 times before, like, Microsoft does not care about selling a box. They care about selling a Game Pass subscription. And if you don't have to own a PlayStation or an Xbox or a PC, and like you said last week, you go to the store and buy a $60 controller that comes with a 90-day trial for Game Pass, and you play Call of Duty.
Yeah, especially, you know, that box will be decked out in Call of Duty colors. It'll be sitting right next to the physical game, or, you know, like the actual game, because you'll still sell those. But yeah, and also Microsoft, I believe, are totally willing to take the hit of not having it on PlayStation. Like, they would be willing to lose the hundreds of millions of dollars, because at that point they would just develop the games differently. And a little bit I didn't put in here, Bloomberg also reported that high-level executives around Activision are talking about maybe not doing yearly Call of Duty games, because they feel like that would boost morale of players and boost the morale of the fans.
Yeah, but how many people possibly do you think, how many households do you think have an Xbox 360 or better controller sitting in their house?
I mean, it's probably lower than we think.
Yeah,
but I wouldn't be surprised if that number is like 20%.
Okay.
You know,
so then
like,
all of a sudden, if you just launch Game Pass, like you launch Netflix, like,
yeah,
you connect
and
your
also,
controller.
don't be surprised if they just treat controllers like consoles and take a loss on them. Right now, they make a profit on controllers, but you have to tell me Microsoft's like, hey, we can cut the price of the controllers in half just to get people into our ecosystem.
Yeah,
they do it in a heartbeat,
or
it's only $25.
You present it as here's a $50 controller with a year Game Pass.
Yeah,
so yeah, like that year Game Pass is $120 value, but it's like when Nintendo would sell Wii Sports Resort with an extra Wiimote in it. We all bought the game because it had another Wiimote that you couldn't get. So.
Yeah, but like, honestly, like, we talk about, like, the console manufacturers sound like they lose dozens, if not like $100 or so with every console they sell. You're telling me they wouldn't exchange that for losing $20 on a controller, especially if they can sell those controllers for like $20-$25 at impulse price, and just have them like literally next to the cash out lane? Just like, yo, here's a controller. It comes with Call of Duty, but it's not Call of Duty. It's a month of Game Pass.
Yeah, I could totally see like a Rumble-less controller is $30, and a controller with Rumble is $50, and the Call of Duty Special Edition is $60. We could totally see something like that, and we see it similar with phones, with like whatever it is, like the iPhone SE and the iPhone 13 and the iPhone 13 Max. Like, they all kind of do the same thing, but one does something a little bit better than the others. Is that worth it to you? Like, but at the same time, like, it all makes a phone call and it sends a text message and lets you go online.
Yeah. No, yeah. It's just going to come down to like features and stuff, and how much you're willing to take a loss on a controller. Because I think that's ultimately where you want to go, is just selling people controllers, as opposed to trying to there will be no chip shortage issues,
right,
if you're just trying to sell controllers in the future.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that there's not gonna be a new Xbox. Like, I think there'll still be a new Xbox, because that's the thing that people are still gonna be, but it's just gonna be a platform for Game Pass. Like, yeah, you can still, to Michael's point, you can still buy the games, but I'll have a hard time as a consumer walking into a store and picking up, unless I have the console, I guess. But even so, like, mentally in my mind, like, picking up Call of Duty for $70 or picking up the controller for $50 that comes with a subscription. Like,
especially, look how
hard.
Imagine next generation, they're like, hey, here's the Xbox Series 2 for $500, or you can play the same games with this $50 controller. They make you buy the controller or something, and they're just like, you can play those games too. $50 investment plus subscriptions, because they won't ever advertise a subscription cost, just to get the controller into people's house. But that's where they'll be going. It is interesting, though, that like PlayStation is a huge part of the Call of Duty business, so it's going to be up to Microsoft of balancing, like, do we want that money in? Do we need that money coming from PlayStation, or can we live without it? Most likely they can live without it. But again, if they move away from the yearly cycle, in terms of every other year is a new single player, multiplayer Call of Duty, and those in between years, you just work on Warzone. Like have a big expansion for Warzone in between that. You can keep the Warzone free to play, still keep it on PlayStation, but then those yearly Call of Duties with the single player campaign are going to be exclusive to Game Pass. I think both sides will be okay, and if anything, that will just drive business to those war zones on the PlayStation
you're gonna have to make a Microsoft account. If it's on PlayStation, you're gonna have to make a Microsoft account for crossplay.
Yeah, and I think you already kind of have to do that for Minecraft, so it's like it's not something that's completely crazy. I mean, you make a Uplay account for Ubisoft games, you make an Epic account for Fortnite, so it wouldn't be absolutely insane for that to happen on PlayStation.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if they signed a 10-year deal, like, because Bloomberg's like, after 2024, 2025, things all up in the air. Their negotiation phase, I'm sure at one point Microsoft will be like, hey, Call of Duty will go exclusive, but we will put Game Pass on PlayStation if you guys want. And it'll be up to Sony to be like, yes or no. Sony will say no, because why would they? They're number one. They don't need to.
Right.
But it'll be up in the air, at least for that point. And Microsoft can point to that and be like, hey, we offered to keep them on PlayStation consoles, but they said no. And then they just move on. All right. Anything else from the Activision, Blizzard, Microsoft stuff? I think we're good. We do have some questions that we'll round back to about that. But there is one more piece of news that I did not put in our docket, and that is Respawn are making 3 new Star Wars games. This was announced just a couple hours ago.
Yeah.
So EA and LucasArts or Lucasfilm Games announced 3 new Star Wars titles from Respawn. It's Jedi Fallen Order 2 with the same Respawn team with Stig working on the single-player campaign for that. They are making a first-person shooter in a Star Wars universe, and then was it a strategy game for the third Star Wars game?
Yeah, I didn't read the details. I just saw 3 separate games.
So they're making 3 new Star Wars games from Respawn alone. Holy shit, do we have a lot of Star Wars games coming.
Yeah, that's the first thing. Like, Star Wars fatigue. Because Ubisoft's doing something, Respawn's now doing 3. And
you have the remake for Knights of the Old Republic, and then you have the Quantic Dream Star Wars game.
So there's definitely some fatigue.
And Lego.
Yeah, that comes out like next month, actually, or March. So yeah, there's like that's the first concern is there's definitely some fatigue. But at the same time, as much as I enjoyed playing Titanfall, like to play a Star Wars first-person shooter from Respawn, that sounds really cool. Like, but it also means that Titanfall is just being buried, which is kind of unfortunate.
Yeah.
And then I'm also worrying that maybe Respawn's getting stretched too thin now. Like, this is Platinum Games from 5 or 6 years ago of, like, I don't know, like, but this kind of circles back to what we talked about. Like, obviously Respawn's going to have to hire. And then they hire people, and they release the games. Then what do you do? Like, Jedi Fallen Order, first one, didn't get any support, but you were working on the second one. So if you're not going to work on a third one, what do you do with the people you brought on for the first and second one? And then you got a first-person shooter. Is it going to be a games as a service, or is it going to be an 8-hour campaign like Titanfall 1 was? Is it going to have multiplayer? Does that multiplayer then need to be free to play? And by 2025, I think that it would need to be free to play.
Yeah, I mean, they've already passed off Apex to another studio. But I think that studio has Respawn's name in it now.
Right.
So that's off their plate. Jedi Fallen Order is still going. I wonder if these 2 Star Wars games include that other... Remember there was talk at Respawn that they're really excited for a new IP they were working on? I wonder if that just turned into a Star Wars game. Like, EA looked at it and is like, a slap Boba Fett on that game and we got ourselves a deal sort of scenario.
And if I had to guess, that's probably the shooter.
Yeah, most likely that's going to be the shooter, because I don't see Respawn having another new IP on top of these Star Wars games, on top of their already like large workload, because the head of Respawn is working with that other studio in LA to work on a Battlefield game as well. So this is kind of crazy that all of this is being put on Respawn, but this is the most electronics arts, the EA move possible. You you found success with Respawn.
Keep stuff in the pig.
They're just gonna throw everything they have at Respawn and just hope that they can keep this going. Hopefully they can. I'm at least confident enough that Jedi Fallen Order 2 will probably be good because they kept that core team. But everything outside of that, I would probably be a little worried.
I think the shooter will be okay, just because if they
depends on the scale.
Yeah, that's true. But then the strategy game, the same concern I would have would be like, who's working on it? What experience do they have in working on it? You know, like on strategy games. And I'm sure like these game companies know what they're doing, but you know, at a certain point in time, like, you know, they're getting rushed and told like, hey, like, we know EA puts strict deadlines on stuff, and you got to hit the deadline come hell or high water.
Yeah, they're working with former XCOM devs on a strategy game, so perfect group of people to work with on a strategy game. But what does that workload look like in terms of like, is it 50-50? Is it 75-25?
Right.
How much is actually being put on Respawn, or is Respawn just like, use the characters we made from Fallen Order in this game, and then this XCOM dev team run off with, you know, just the character designs and a little bit of story.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but I have the same concerns as you. Like Respawn might be just doing just like one or two many things, but we'll see exactly how this plays out in like 5 fucking years.
That's the thing that sucks too. And I said it too. Like, we're kind of already starting to hear about it a little bit, but like Activision Blizzard announced a new game, like today, sort of
survival game.
Survival game, and they announced it by saying like, hey, we need to hire people to work on this game. And like we're hearing about game announcements, whether they're in quarterly earnings calls or they're in court or they're in like hiring practices. We're not hearing about these games when the developer goes, hey, we got something really cool to show you guys. And that's the part of right now that's kind of sucking. Like, we're going to hear about more games that Activision was or wasn't working on during these court proceedings, if they do go to court.
Yeah, and we're just going to have a lot of stuff where it's just on pause because Activision's just like, hey, we can't spend this money yet because it's not really our money anymore. And then Microsoft's going to go through their evaluation phase, which I'm sure they're doing it now. But, you know, there'll probably be a pitch session of all these studios being like, hey, we want to work on this. My fear with the EA thing is because EA has no problems canceling Star Wars games. They've canceled several.
Yeah.
When they start planning this stuff out and have to fit them in between all the other Star Wars projects, we could talk about some of these games coming out in like 6 or 7 years. Is the market still going to want that many Star Wars games? Because we saw it with the movies. Disney was like, hey, we're going to release 1 to 2 Star Wars movies every single year. And then by year 3, the market was like, we're cool. Like, we don't want this anymore. And then Disney just cut it all off.
And I think that we would have been in the exact same spot with the Marvel movies if it wasn't for the pandemic.
Yeah, that slowed things down just enough for Marvel to be like, okay, let's we can spread things out a little bit more.
The pandemic definitely did slow some things down for everybody, but we're kind of at the point where like these games are going to come out when hopefully the world's in a better place. And to your point of like, when we're in a better place, or, you know, and the game industry is able to go back to kind of normal and catch up, are we going to want to play a Star Wars shooter from Respawn in March and then play Ubisoft Star Wars third-person shooter? I don't know if that's what it is, but in June, and then play Jedi Fallen Order in October. Like, are we gonna? Do you want to play 3 Star Wars games in 1 year? I don't.
I barely want to play one.
Yeah,
to be honest, and I like Star Wars, but
if the story's cool and the character development and the arc is cool, like I don't really care what the background is. I'm like, I don't want to go back through and play, you know, any of the movies. But if you're gonna tell me about new characters, new areas, new protagonists, new antagonists, new worlds, like I'm for it, like whatever. But not 3 times in a year of like where like, because then you start getting like, do you have to play the one before this? Like, even though do I have to play Ubisoft's game to understand Respawn's game? Like, no.
Yeah, which you won't have to. No, but that's going to be.
But
in
the
your
consumer would. Yeah. Like,
but also, if one of those Star Wars games are bad,
all of them would struggle. So.
Yeah. Because people are going to, especially when we talk about the average consumer who doesn't know who the fuck Respawn is. Right. You know, they're just like, I just like this game.
Yeah.
They're going to be like, oh, the last Star Wars game sucked. Yeah. I don't want this new Star Wars game. And someone being like, "Oh, don't worry, it's Respawn," isn't going to mean anything to them because they've been burned once already. So, good luck to Respawn. I'm sure we'll see they're hiring a bunch of people shortly from this news because they definitely need the staffing to handle that. But that is everything that I have for the news, unless something breaks
while we're
within
recording.
The next 20, within the next 20, 30 minutes.
All right. It does not appear that anything was delayed so far. So that's always a good thing. What we're playing and watching. Based on this list, yours is shorter than mine. Do you want to go, or do you want me to go?
Yeah, I can. Okay. I can go. Mine is pretty basic. Still going through the Uncharted series. That's still fun. I've been playing Windjammers 2. So this came out on PS4, PS5, Xbox, and PC. It's crossplay with PC and Xbox. PlayStation is on its own island, and it's PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 crossplay, so cross-gen over there. Don't know why exactly it worked out that way, but that's at least what all the research I can find on it. So I picked it up on Game Pass just because why not? And also I have more access to my Xbox. And
because his fiance has taken his PlayStation hostage.
Yeah, it's fine though. Honestly, like there's not much to play on PlayStation right now, and I hate to say that, which is why I'm playing Uncharted over again. And I'll probably be playing Uncharted Lost Legacy next week because it's a $10 upgrade or something.
Yeah, I didn't realize that game came out in like 3 days.
I didn't either at all until like this past weekend. I realized it's like, oh, it's the end of the month. I knew it was soon, but I didn't know it was like the end of the month.
Angela's gonna make me download and boot that game up just so she can see it on this boot up Uncharted 4 just so she can see it in 4K 60 or whatever it's doing to it. You know?
Yeah. $10 upgrade isn't too bad either, so it's not the worst. But Windjammers 2, this is a sequel from a game in the like 90s, I believe is when Windjammers 1 came out. This is basically like an frisbee tennis game, but with characters with different abilities and super moves, power moves, whatever you want to call them. Pretty straightforward sequel to the original. It's just good online code because the original was remastered or whatever, remade not too long ago, which made a lot of people excited and wanting a sequel. They did a good job of bringing this to modern platforms and maintaining the same sort of art style, but cleaning up the edges. And at least on Xbox, the multiplayer, the online has been really good. I suck at it, apparently. Yeah. I'm 1-4 in the ranked matches. Which
it's like I mean, I could be totally off base here, but it's like a frisbee kind of game.
Yeah, it's frisbee tennis basically.
Yeah.
Where you have like two big goals.
I feel like the remaster was on Plus or something.
So there was like a knockoff that was on Plus, but it was on PlayStation as well. There was Disc Jam, I believe, that was on Plus, and then Windjammers remaster or re-release did make it to PlayStation, and had a decent netcode, but definitely had its issues. This one built from the ground up to be multiplayer, so it works significantly better. I'm really enjoying the hell out of it. I'm hoping I can get to a better rhythm because you do need quick reflexes on this, so I probably should have played the arcade mode instead of jumping into rank play right away. That's my bad, because was not ready to get my ass kicked. The one win I got, I barely got. It's only because my opponent messed up. It wasn't like I was really good or had some skills. It's just I can tell they hit the wrong button or something because they just did not go the right direction. But I'm enjoying it. This will probably be my multiplayer kill 10 minutes sort of game because matches it's a best of 3, so matches only take a couple minutes. And then I've been playing Rainbow Six Extraction, which I thought I put on the list, but this would be a crossover to yours because you played significantly more Rainbow Six Extraction than I have, just because we did get codes from Ubisoft. So I got a code, Dave got a code, and then we gave a code to one of our friends and listeners. So Dave's been playing with that person because my schedule just does not line up with Dave or anyone else for this game. So Dave, you want to take it away and I'll just jump in?
Yeah, well, the first thing I want to get out of the way is it's on Game Pass, and then it's also cross-play and cross-progression. It's on Game Pass for console and for PC. I did set up a channel in our Discord, so if it's something that you you do want to play, you can go ahead and jump in there and conversate with that, because the first thing I'll say is you should not play this game with randoms. Like, it's just not fun.
No, I will tell you about my experience with
that. The second thing is it's super fun with your friends. And you guys know me. I love cooperative shooters. It's just something I enjoy playing all the time as much as I can. And I've had a blast playing with multiple friends that I have. Some of them on PlayStation and some of them on Xbox. So it is essentially like 3 separate rooms. There's a risk-reward system to it. There's, just the first thing is just staying alive. Is your first objective. The second one can be a random objective in each of those rooms, and then the third can be oh crap, my teammate died, or my teammate got knocked down. I need to revive them, or they're down and they get covered in foam because they need to be extracted. And then I found a lot of times that there's a lot of randomness too. Of this one was easy. This one was easy. This one was a little harder, but it's okay. We got through it. And then the next time you go into the next room, next time you go in the next room for Rainbow Six Extraction, you have to all of a sudden it's just batshit crazy. There's no reason behind it being like that. And some of that seems to be randomness. Some of it seems to be just anything. The thing that I find fascinating that I haven't really paid a ton of attention to, as I try to stay away from Reddit and forums and feedback when I'm first playing games a little bit, is there is negative progression in this game. You can lose levels. You can lose a level. You can lose a significant amount of XP for failing, for all 3 of your teammates dying. You failing the objective entirely, and then you need to go get those. You need to go get your operator back. So
yes, because you do lose access to them.
Yes,
which is very unforgiving if you're trying to play the solo, because holy shit, do you need to work with other people on these objectives.
Mm-hmm. Well, the first part is that you probably just need to make sure that you're kind of balanced. You have almost and I didn't play enough Rainbow Six Siege to understand the operators. Josh, who's been in chat, is a former coworker of mine, and he's spent some time in Rainbow Six Siege, and so he kind of knew what each one of them were doing. He was trying to figure out how these operators operate in Extraction, because there's certain ones of you break through a wall. That's not necessarily needed in this, because you're trying to be a little bit more stealthy. But
eventually there is, but they did fit that. But I was familiar with that, which is where my early frustration is when playing with randoms, of just why the fuck are you guys playing this character right now?
Right.
So that could be a little aggravating, because there's a lot of strategy.
You need a healer. You definitely need somebody that can heal people. The other mechanic that's interesting to me is your health. Your health number, your HP, does not increase. You can give yourself more armor, but if you're hurt, and I think if you get down below 50% of your base health, your operator is then put into the injured state, and you can't use them again. However, completing another successful extraction with a different operator grants you health points, and those health points are reapplied to the healing of the characters. And then if you don't extract your lost character on your next mission, if you don't get them pulled out and extracted and brought back to base, that character is unusable for a certain amount of time. I don't know what time. I just think it just happened to me a couple days ago, and I haven't gone back to look. And you will eventually get that operator back, but that operator will then, again, like we talked about, have lost a significant amount of XP.
Yeah.
So
this game is brutal. I was frustrated because I ended up losing 3 characters right away playing with randoms, just because people were extracting too early. Because once you extract someone, mission over. As far as I know, I don't know if someone goes away from the extraction point.
Well, all three people have to operate with it. I did have have to interact with it. We did have a situation where one of our guys thought we were leaving, and we're like, no, we're going to go to the airlock, and he had actually called for the helicopter to come pick him up. And if all 3 don't call for it, it doesn't come.
Yeah, so there's been times where someone went down, and I'm the only one on the mic being please do not, you put the body in the container, do not hit extract. Put the body in the container, do not hit extract, and then they hit extract, and it's shit, okay, we all gotta go now. And then that ends the mission, which sucks, because that's the risk reward, is you can extract at any time when you're doing the 3 levels,
So you can still finish the
can,
objective, or do the bonus objective, or do some studies and get some more XP, and then leave.
yeah, But when someone hits that extraction, you just have to leave, and you're done, which is a little bit frustrating with that aspect. But yeah, this is definitely a game you need to be able to communicate with people and work together. And I also think it's very important for this game because I do think the game's just a little bit bland visually.
Mm-hmm.
Like the monsters are,
the guns all sound the same, the characters all look the same. Yep.
Yeah, so that aspect is bland, but the good thing about with co-op games is they just become a chat room.
Yep.
For you to catch up with your friends.
Night. Yep.
Yeah, and this is perfect. As someone who plays a lot of, used to play a lot of Back 4 Blood, used to play a ton of Left 4 Dead.
Yeah.
This fits in that.
Or even like Call of Duty Warzone with your buddies. Or, it just.
But it's specifically like hordes of enemies coming at you, co-op game. This is a little more generic than those other ones, but it makes up for that with that risk reward stuff to where it's kind of asking you with your co-op buddies to be like, hey, sit back and actually think about some of your actions just a little bit, because there's the risk reward aspect, there's the negative XP aspect. So it's asking a little bit more from your co-op buddies.
Yeah, we found ourselves before we interacted with an objective, like, okay, hey, can we like seal this room off or funnel this room off so we know where most of them are coming from, and then, putting out some things, doing a little bit more prep work and a little bit more, more tactical like that. And again, I haven't played a lot of Rainbow Six Siege, but what people were kind of asking for out of the Rainbow Six franchise, like since New Vegas, right? Rainbow Six New Vegas or
no, Rainbow Six Vegas. I believe.
Okay.
New Vegas is the Fallout game.
All right, sorry. I hadn't really messed with too many of those. I've dabbled a little bit with Rainbow Six, but not nearly as much. And this is making me want to mess with Rainbow Six more, and that's also on Game Pass now. But removing the Game Pass equation for him, this is a $40 game. Like, I think this has significant value at a $40 price point.
It does feel like it is just an expansion for Rainbow Six Siege.
Mm-hmm.
But the $40 price point makes you be able to eat that a little bit better, if that makes sense, because it does feel like it is just an expansion for that game, but at least they're not asking for $60 or $70 for this expansion. So we've seen standalone expansions before, so I'm treating it as a standalone expansion.
And I think it's good. If you like shooters, you like co-op games, like this is worth $40. And then the best part about it is the positive is it's $40. The other positive is it's on Game Pass on console and PC. And then the third thing is, with it being $40, is it has cross-play. So if you buy it on PlayStation, I can play with you. Michael can play. Your buddies can play. If your buddy owns a Game Pass game, or Game Pass, they can play with you on PlayStation. And I think that's great.
Yeah. And it's Game Pass PC as well, right?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. So it's even better for that thing. It's just, if you pick it up, don't expect like the most in-depth story or anything like that. That's definitely where you can see why it's a $40 game and not a $60 game. There's definitely, they do their best to like put like a nice cinematic, like Ubisoft always does at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, there's cutscenes and like little cutscenes when you unlock more tech, but
but it's not super deep. This does feel like, this is gonna sound bad. This feels like a $40 game, but that's not necessarily a bad thing.
But at least it doesn't feel like a $40 game that's $70.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel like it's $20 either.
Right.
There's enough here for $40, except if you do not have anyone to play with, I don't recommend trying to play with randoms. I just don't think it'll work. And it's one of those games where if you can't get your friends to commit to playing this game, then it's probably not worth it for you. I would love to see a bundle.
Yeah, I kind of wish it was more than 3 players, though. Like, I wish it was like maybe 4 or 5, but I guess maybe that would make it too easy. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, because the maps are kind of small because they're broken into sections. Yeah. But who knows? They can expand upon that if they want in the future.
It's just like, like I got 3 other people that want to play. Like, oh, okay. But hopefully we can get some more people grouping up. But I could definitely see it being a weekly gaming night thing for myself and some buddies. So I played a ton also last week of Nobody Saves the World. I think I'm like 18 hours into this game, and I am absolutely loving it. Like, it's so much fun. Kind of exploring the map, figuring some things out, messing with the other forms, upgrading them. The story is okay. It's kind of little bit slowly drip fed, but as expected, as you unlock more things, you find out more stuff. So I'm really enjoying that. Another great game that's been on Game Pass. not that I want to beat a dead horse, because I feel like I've been talking very positively about this right now, and I think I put it on the Facebook group. The integration between my phone, my PlayStation, or my phone, my PC, and my console for playing this, as an example, for playing this game, is flawless. Like, it just works. And I don't have to jump through a hoop to move my save file. I don't have to re-sign in or reconnect or put something in a cloud. It just works. I've played it upstairs on my couch on the console. I've come downstairs and streamed it on Game Pass on PC, and it's been there. I didn't realize until a couple days ago it supports touch controls on my phone.
Yeah.
And it just works. Randy asked me a question the other day, and I just pulled the game up on my phone, took a screenshot of what I was talking about, and sent it to him. So cool.
That stuff's so amazing. And we're still in the early stages of that stuff in terms of like broadband, internet. And
I was
stuff.
playing Rainbow Six Extraction with 2 people, or 1 person in PC, 1 person on console, myself on PC. I understand it's all within the Microsoft ecosystem. We're in the same party chat. Like, it works, and then you had to add a couple. So I will say that if you are playing on Game Pass on PC, you actually have to launch you have to have your Game Pass on PC there. You have to link your Ubisoft account with your Microsoft account, obviously, and then you have to go into Ubisoft's launcher to get Rainbow Six, and it knows that
it's the same way with EA too.
Okay.
With their EA Play games on Game Pass PC. It's not perfect.
Yeah, it knows that you based on you connecting your account, it knows you have Game Pass, and then you can download and launch the game. I was looking all over for the game in the Xbox store, and it wasn't there.
It's the same pain on EA Play, which is why I don't really interact with the EA games on Game Pass like at all.
On the console, it just works. But it's just been a bunch of we all laughed at Microsoft, or were making fun of Microsoft for like smart delivery and their marketing terms, but like their stuff is just right now, it's just working better. I can just download games I can pick the console I want to download it to, and I can just download it because I have the S and the X right now. So I can just pick which console I want to download it to. I can kick it off from my phone by the time I get home. It feels like there's always something going on with PlayStation. Oh, your PlayStation's not on, or you have, it's been too long and you haven't linked it with it. Like, I get it, and PlayStation's not flawless, Xbox is not flawless, but Xbox is just, in terms of the user integration, is just nailing it right now. Microsoft is. So, and then I worked over the weekend, unfortunately, but I did, work. I was off most evenings, so I probably got to see the end of 1 and to watch 3, the end of 2, and to watch 2 others of probably the best football games that I've seen. The 4 playoff games this weekend were probably the best weekend of football we've ever had. All 4 games were decided on the last play of the game, and all of them were super entertaining. Sorry, Curry, about your Bills, but that was a hell of a game. Overtime rules in the NFL suck, but it was still a hell of a game. So that was great. So I don't want to bore anybody with that too much, but the football was good this weekend, and I heard something on the radio today, like 48 million people watched the Bills Chiefs game. It's nuts. And then I watched the Peacemaker show. I watched 3 episodes of The Peacemaker on HBO Max. It's okay. I'm interested in the characters, like trying to see what's going on and how it ties into it. There's terms that they're using in there, like that kind of tie back to some of the the Arrow and the Flash shows on CW of like the DC lore. So trying to figure out what's going on still.
I need to start it. The reviews have been saying it's fine, it's okay to good, so I need to start that. But man, every time I just try not to get attached to DC stuff.
Yeah, it's by the way, it's just full disclosure, it's an HBO show. And it's got violence. It's not for the faint of heart. So, but yeah, that's it. I've streamed a lot last week. My goal is to hopefully stream some more. I put a list out of stuff that I want to kind of go through and play this year. I have a goal of ideally completing 12 games this year, 1 game per month. And I think streaming is going to be something that's going to help me kind of hold to that. So if I can, I feel like if I can play the game, and I should be able to stream it. I need to look into streaming from the Xbox console upstairs, as well as just maybe streaming a little bit more from the PS5 directly. I worry about, and I know you guys don't care, I care. I worry about, viewership, chat interaction, quality, how it looks, things like that. But ultimately, I know you guys just kind of check in. So if you see us streaming, myself streaming, or if we can motivate Michael to stream a little bit more, just pop in the chat, say hi, talk to us for a second, and double check your Prime subscription, and you can dip out, or hang out and have a conversation, ask some questions about the game we're playing, or
just leave it in the background. Yeah. Just put your phone down. You don't need to look at your phone right now.
Open up a tab at work or on your other, and just mute it and leave it there and leave it going. Like, that's fine.
Yeah, same thing with Spotify and all the other streaming services. You just hit our podcast, hit play, walk away. Fine. Go to your local Best Buy and go to every laptop and put digitalgaming.com and then hit play on each of the videos and then walk away.
Wash your hands afterwards.
Yes, please do.
All right. You got anything else for playing and watching?
No. So Sarah wanted to watch Infinity War and Endgame again because she hadn't seen them since they were in theaters. Okay. So I tricked her into watching Ant-Man and the Wasp in between because I'm like, you need to see Ant-Man and the Wasp because she's never seen it. And I'm like, it's very important to Infinity War and Endgame. In reality, I could have just shown her the end credit scene of Ant-Man and the Wasp, but that wouldn't be as fun. So going through that.
By the way, Peacemaker has some stuff at the end of credits too, each episode. FYI, if you watch it.
How good are they at skipping in HBO Max? Because I get so frustrated.
Actually, they're not. I was actually kind of frustrated at first, but I think it had to do with the end credit scenes of I was like, okay, the credits are rolling. When is it going to say play next episode? And it doesn't until the show gets to the last 10 seconds. Yeah. So because I
still hate that Disney Plus has not figured out a good way to tell you there's to let you know there's a mid and
at this point in time, just edit it, put it before the credits.
That's what I'm saying. They should do that, and they just have a skip credits button, but it should say skip to the credit scene, or something, or just put them all in their own playlist and just let me watch it that way. I get super frustrated.
Yeah,
because I had to fast forward 10 seconds at a time at the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp to get to the end credit scene.
Yeah, it sucks. So.
Yeah, but yeah, that nothing major for me. Gameplay wise, it's been Windjammers, Uncharted.
Awesome. All right, so we're gonna go through some questions and comments using hashtag AskDigitalDays. So you can send us those on the Facebook group, Discord. You can post them. I guess I'll pay attention if you post them in a TikTok comment or YouTube comment. Please don't.
It's not the place to do it.
Yeah, so tweet them to us, put them in the Facebook group, put them in Discord. Tweeting and Discord, I think, are the two safest places that we can search the hashtag or we can go into the channel specifically. But we'll take questions anyway. We can get them. Not going to be too super picky. So Lebetsky, who do you think Sony would purchase if they could, quote, respond to Xbox?
Okay. I have two answers. First one, Kojima Productions. Just it fits their pattern of purchasing someone they've worked with closely.
Okay.
And it wouldn't be crazy expensive. Though you would get the problem of having Kojima Productions on on your books timeline wise in terms of getting him to get a game done and not doing all the stuff he likes to do on the side. Second answer, because we talked about this last week, I think I shot down the idea of Square Enix because I don't think PlayStation has any interest in anything outside of Final Fantasy for Square Enix in terms of their Western studios, their boutique RPG studios. I don't think Sony wants to deal with an MMO, even if it's a successful MMO.
Right.
So I don't think Square Enix works. I think Capcom would probably be the best fit, though it would mean probably the death to some of those Capcom franchises. Because I think what Capcom has going for it is Resident Evil has hit the quality level that you can probably compare it to Sony's prestigious first-party games in terms of
the horror genre. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's prestige horror.
Yep.
And sorry for people that don't know about my Chicago accent, and I can't say the word horror. I feel like I always have to apologize because I just say horror, and people are like, "What the fuck is he saying?"
What'd you call me?
Yeah, exactly. So I think Resident Evil is up to the quality level that Sony likes in terms of The Last of Us or Spider-Man in terms of their it's just quality. It has hit that Metacritic level that they like. And then Street Fighter fits with their Evo purchase that they made last year.
Oh.
Everything outside of that, I think, would die because Sony has no interest in Mega Man. They would have no interest in Dead Rising, or they would have interest in Monster Hunter because that's a multiplayer game and that's something that they lack, and that is a quality level. So outside of Resident Evil, Street Fighter, and Monster Hunter, I don't think they have any interest in anything else Capcom makes, which means those Mega Man would probably die. Like,
or get sold.
or get sold, most likely buried, or they just specifically buy that chunk of Capcom. So
Right.
those would be my two answers.
In terms of like what if you want to do like kind of like try to go punch for punch with Microsoft, which you can't. Right off the bat, the first thing is Ubisoft.
Yeah.
You know, like, but does Sony want that headache? You want to talk about like like what's going on at Activision Blizzard versus what's going on at Ubisoft? Like that's they're kind of similar. You know, but that's also you're inheriting some developmental hell too. But
Skull and Bones. Like,
the monkey, or I can't think of the game right now.
Beyond Good and Evil.
Yeah. So along with everything else that's going on there, and then their relationship with Nintendo would automatically be fractured if Sony purchases them with the Mario stuff and the Rabbids, and so.
I also think with Ubisoft, like I think the Assassin's Creed franchise has peaked, which is why they're trying to start fresh from that. The Division, I think, has peaked. Far Cry, I think, has peaked. So like, they would be getting prestige stuff. Like you would almost
be getting a huge amount of knowledge of how to make decent to above average games of service, though, which is something that Sony lacks.
Motorstorm from Ubisoft would probably be
like a
perfect.
Riders Republic Motorstorm, like
yeah,
like something like that would be cool. But ultimately, I think with the like I put this on Twitter, I got some hate for it. Like, fix your relationship with your indie studios, with the indies. Like, I'm not saying it's fractured. It needs to be better. The fact that Guacamele's Drinkbox's games like that, where Guacamele was like crossplay on Vita and PS3 and was part of Plus Collection and all that stuff, and then their Nobody Saves the World game is not there, is disappointing.
Yeah.
And like they didn't get Hades first. Like I'm not saying like there was so many like in terms of order of importance right now. I feel like for indies it's Switch, PC, and then number 2 is Xbox, and number 3 is Sony. Sony needs to figure out how to get back in at least in the number 2 spot. You're never going to get ahead of the PC. But they need to get back in that number 2 spot of like where indies want PC and PlayStation.
No, it's completely agree, and also that would be the least expensive option for them in terms. All they have to do is throw a little money that they care, but that is a hell of a lot cheaper. You can gain the respect of hundreds of indie devs versus how much it would cost to buy one publisher.
And I don't know what's going on. Like, I'm not naive. Like, Microsoft's throwing money at these games, obviously, to put them on Game Pass, and they were, and they're helping, and they're boosting the library for Game Pass and all that stuff. I get it. But something has changed. Like, and it might, and I even put it on Twitter, like, it might be the pandemic, but, like, we would have seen, like, PlayStation would have had these relationships with these indies, and Michael and I would have played them. And we would have played them through PlayStation PR or through appointments or at E3, and it would have been in Sony's booth, or it would have been adjacent to Sony's booth, and they would have had some pomp and circumstance for them to play them. And now it's just not happening. And the alternative is it's coming to Game Pass, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll play it because it's on Game Pass. It's just there.
Yeah.
And
I never finish them.
Yep. And Sony doesn't have their indie sale anymore, or the summer sale highlighting an indie every month like they used to.
Well, I think they do, but it's just not a thing anymore that they like advertise.
It's not on the blog,
hard.
or they're like I saw them do a huge push for Kenna, like a huge push for Kenna, but we used to see that same kind of push for Kenna at least on a game every 3 months.
Yeah.
And it's just not there.
And it only felt like Kenna got that push because they didn't have anything else.
Yeah.
Like at all.
And then the counterpart is 100%. Like you're like Microsoft doesn't push it. If you're thinking that in your mind, no, they don't, and they don't have to because they're getting you for $10 a month, and the game's just there.
Yeah, and then it works out for the indie dev because the indie devs have said like, oh, our sales spike.
Yeah,
like they go up when we're on Game Pass. So yeah, but yeah, no, I honestly.
And when Nobody Saves the World comes to PlayStation, because it will, it'll get huge recognition because it was on Game Pass.
Yeah, but as Game Pass grows, more people are gonna be like, well, I don't need to pick it up on PlayStation because I already played it already on Game Pass. So. But yeah, no, I think it would probably be smarter and cheaper for them to just make a relationship with indie developers again, to like fill those gaps.
Figure out like why Microsoft is getting it other than the money standpoint. Yeah. So. All right, next question. Robert Cartwright. With Microsoft making all these acquisitions and owning large number of AAA titles now, do you think that Game Pass will ever be on PlayStation? No. I
don't want to say never, but I feel like the odds are slightly better after last week than they were before. I think last week or before last week it was 0% chance. Now I think it's like 1% chance.
Yeah, I mean, if the first part about it we've always talked about is like, oh, they get 30%, like Sony gets the 30% cut to put it on your platform. Like, I don't think if Microsoft put it on game, like, I don't think that there would be a 30% cut. There would have to be a contract talk. Like, they're not going to get the same amount because Microsoft's producing the content. Yeah,
it would become a big negotiation. And right now PlayStation has the leverage because they have the consoles, but that leverage could
now
change.
Microsoft has the IPs.
Yeah, I know exactly. To where now it's that it's shifting to where they're going to be even. To then it's going to shift to favor Xbox. And
to your point, like we talked about, like if they have to give Sony 10% of the Game Pass revenue that comes from Sony direct or from PlayStation customers, like they can probably get that same customer on a smart TV.
Yeah, the only thing that would suck too is I don't think people are realizing. Microsoft then would have to develop all of their first-party titles to work on PlayStation. And I don't know if people on PlayStation would buy into a streaming-only version of Game Pass on their PlayStation.
Right, just because they don't buy into a streaming-only version of now for PS3 games.
Yeah, because there's no way Microsoft, even though they have all the manpower now, they're not going to go back and develop Halo Infinite for the PlayStation. They'll stream it, but it's going to be, does Sony want another streaming service on their system? Or would they want like a light version of Game Pass that just has the third-party titles that are already developed available on Game Pass? So it gets tricky. Yeah. If PlayStation would be up for a streaming-only version of Game Pass, then that would be fantastic, but it wouldn't be as successful.
Right. All right. Ali Bartle writes, if you could make one game that's platform exclusive available to all gamers, which would it be?
Go ahead.
I would. The first thing that jumped into my mind is the Uncharted franchise.
Super Smash Brothers. I think that would be kind of amazing because then you could open up and maybe get some PlayStation and Xbox characters into Smash Brothers. But Uncharted would be huge for PlayStation to get that on every platform.
Like Uncharted 1 on the Switch. Come on.
Yeah. But Smash Brothers, I think, would be just amazing. I mean, shit, Microsoft can make their own Smash Brothers now. They have the IP. But holy shit, like, I wonder, so since Nintendo now has had a working relationship with Microsoft to get like Banjo and Kazooie on there, could Nintendo then now go like, we want Crash and Spyro and Smash Brothers the next time around, and then Microsoft is the only person they have to deal with?
Yeah, Phil Spencer says put Game Pass on Switch. Sure, you can have whatever you want.
I mean, he already let him get Banjo and Kazooie on Smash Brothers. So I wonder if he would even care enough to be like, yeah, take Spyro and Crash temporarily on this. Let us release GoldenEye.
You develop the game. You can release it on your platform, but it goes on Game Pass.
But Spyro has to wear a T-shirt that says Game Pass.
No, I'm just saying, like, they tell Nintendo, you pick the studio to make the game. We'll lend you the IP to make the game. You release the game. You can benefit from the Switch sales, but it comes to Xbox and it comes on Game Pass.
Yeah, just throw it on there.
Yeah.
But man, Phil Spencer's Mr. Nice Guy in terms of like lending out Banjo-Kazooie. Maybe he'll lend out Crash and Spyro, but at a certain point, Spencer's going to have too much power and he's not going to have to be Mr. Nice Guy.
Yeah, I know. That's the part of the Microsoft that I worry about eventually.
Yeah.
The cocky Microsoft again. Not the consumer friendly or the, like, we're in it together, Microsoft.
Yeah.
We're in it together until I have all of it.
Yeah.
All right, last question. From Matt Lowe, it's a food question. So sugar or spice? You can only choose one and do without the other forever.
Sugar wins, I think.
No,
sugar's in everything.
I will take. I guess like. I was thinking spice in terms of like. Well, I guess at first when I first read this, I was thinking like spice is like spicy. Like spicy.
No,
food.
I think so too. But like, if we're talking about sweet,
but I would take a spicy bowl of noodles or spicy chips over the cake or brownies.
Okay, but would soda be included? I know
Well,
you're trying to cut out soda.
I've pretty much cut it out. So
I know, but like I've
here.
been sipping this can of Coke this entire time, and I'm just like,
I'm down like 8 pounds. Thank you very much.
I was down to the mini cans, but then I ordered food today and I got a big can. So I would prefer, I think, sugar, because I like cookies and stuff like that over spicy food. Like I don't eat a ton of spicy food.
But if it's just spice, like just like spices.
Oh no! If it's just spices, I need spice on my steak.
Okay.
I need spices. When it talks about like sugary food versus spicy food, I think I'd rather have sugary food.
Yeah, I would take spicy food.
Instead of, yeah, no, I just I'm trying to think of like spicy food that I like enjoy regularly, and there's not much. There's like some like chicken wings sort of thing, some salsa if that counts on like a burrito or something. But a lot of stuff.
Wait, you eat a burrito? It has bread on it. Tortilla is a form of bread.
No, it's not. We're not. I forget you're like suburban white. Tortilla is not bread. Like,
it's a form of bread.
No, it's not. You can't say it's a form of bread. That's like saying like the inside of a cake is a form of bread. He's got to think about this. This is the funny part. Like you're thinking about like the inside of. You're just like, oh, is that? It's not. It's a sponge. No, tortillas is not bread. Jesus Christ. This is your bad food take. Does you think tortillas is bread?
No, I said it was all right, whatever.
Yeah, no.
All right.
I can live without spicy food. My Mexican side of my family are like cursing at me, but I can deal with losing spicy food. I need sugar.
All right, so that is our show. I guess for right now, I would say the spotlight is the Twitch streams that we're trying to do a little bit more, the YouTube channel again with some of the shorts. So just asking for like 60 seconds of your time a day, and then TikTok as well if it's something you want to mess with or not mess with. I know, so like I said earlier, some people are afraid of that, but those are the things that we're kind of looking at, some short form content to get some more eyes, as well as reviews for the show, sharing it. So. The socials, you can follow the main account at Digital Days Pod. You can follow Michael's at The First MJC. You can follow myself at Good Dave Hunt. Facebook group, Discord server, all that stuff is linked in the show notes. And that's all I got. I'm sure next week we'll have some other random topic about Call of Duty or Activision.
Or food.
Yeah, so keep sending us questions. And then, like we talked about, if you can, make some clips, you can always make them not live. If you don't watch live, you can go back to the past broadcasts and check them out. And if we try to get some stuff low, I don't think you can make clips on YouTube. So if you don't know, like you can just go to Twitch, click on our past broadcast, and kind of go through that and find something, and you do that. So that's all I got. So I hope everyone has a great week. Keep moving forward.
Don't be a dick.